My dad's last words on Father's Day, a story of love, loss, and survival. What if the worst day of your life was also a day that's supposed to be a celebration? What if the person you needed most in a moment of crisis was the one you could never turn to again? Father's Day. I'll never forget, not for any of the right reasons, but for all the wrong reasons. My mom was threatening divorce, and my dad was very, very depressed over it. It all started, or maybe it ended, in a house that didn't feel like home anymore. You know that feeling when the air itself gets thick? Heavy. That was our house after my mom said the word divorce. It wasn't a shout, it was a whisper that broke everything. And my dad, he was the one who shattered into the most pieces. He was always my rock, this solid presence in my life. And then suddenly he was just a ghost haunting rooms we used to be a family in. For about a week, I was living this strange double life. I'd go from my mom's temporary place back to our house where my dad was. And every time I walked through that door, he'd look at me with these eyes. God, his eyes were so hollow. He kept asking, "Did you talk to her? And can you just say something, anything to change her mind?" He was begging me to fix it. And I was just a kid. I couldn't tell him what I knew. I couldn't bring myself to say, "Dad, she's already gone." The words wouldn't come out. So I just shuttled back and forth, carrying this heavy, awful truth inside me. Then came the night before Father's Day. I was getting ready to go out with friends. And I look back at that now and think how desperately I just wanted to feel like a normal teenager for a few hours. I went to say goodbye to my dad. I remember standing in the doorway and I told him, "I'll be back early. I'll make you breakfast for Father's Day." He gave me this small, tired smile. It didn't quite reach his eyes, and he said, "I'll take a rain check." A rain check, I didn't think anything of it. It was just a phrase. I said, "Okay," and I left. That night, I was trying so hard to outrun everything. I went to a club with my friends. I was already on a prescription for Adderall, and I was taking more than I should have been, hiding it. And in that club, I decided to take some ecstasy on top of it. I just wanted to feel good. I wanted the noise and the lights to burn out the sadness, but it didn't work. After an hour of feeling nothing, this wave of heat just washed over me. My heart started going crazy, just hammering against my ribs. My thoughts got all fuzzy and I couldn't breathe right. I just knew something was terribly wrong. I begged my friends, "You have to take me to the hospital. Something is happening to me." They just shrugged it off, laughed even. They thought I was being dramatic. Finally, this boy I had just met that day, he saw the panic in my eyes. He drove me to his house. I remember that car ride, focusing on every single breath, convinced that if I stopped concentrating for 1 second, my heart would just explode. When we got to his place, my body finally started to calm down, but it left me feeling incredibly weak, like a marionette with its strings cut. I just collapsed on his bed. And then the weirdest thing happened. His dog, this big, gentle creature, hopped up on the couch next to me. He curled up and rested his head on my leg and just looked at me with this profoundly sad expression. It was like he knew, like he understood everything I couldn't say. Around 6 in the morning, my friends all showed up, full of apologies for not taking me seriously. I was too tired to be angry. I just asked them to take me home. On the way, I just started crying out of nowhere. It wasn't loud, just silent tears rolling down my face. I had this overwhelming feeling that something still wasn't right with my body and that I'd have to ask my dad to take me to the hospital when I got home. We pulled up to the house. It was quiet. The sun was coming up, and I saw a piece of paper taped to the front door. My blood went cold. I walked up to it, and I read the words. It was my dad's handwriting. It basically said, "Don't go in the house and call the police. I'm sorry for being such a coward." Everything just stopped. The world went completely silent. My heart, which had been racing all night, felt like it just dropped out of my chest. My eyes were completely dry. I took out my phone and I called the police. I remember my voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. I said, "My dad has killed himself." After I hung up, I sat down on the porch steps, and that's when I finally cried. The rest of the day was just noise and flashes. My mom showing up, her screams just, oh my God, over and over. A neighbor taking me to their house, putting me to bed in their guest room. I spent the rest of the day alone in that room, and it was a long time later, lying in that strange bed, that it hit me. I just lay there and realized it was Father's Day. It wasn't a lightning bolt. It was more like a slow, cold flood. Father's Day, the day I was supposed to make him breakfast, the day I had promised I'd be back for. The irony was so cruel, so impossibly sharp. It felt like the universe was laughing at me, but I didn't have the strength to even get angry. My body was still fighting its own private war. My heart would randomly flutter, a terrifying reminder of the night before. I was so weak. The grief was just this immense, crushing weight I couldn't even begin to lift. You see people in movies wail and scream when tragedy hits. I just lay there, silent. I wanted to scream, but there was no air in my lungs. I wanted to cry, but my body had nothing left to give. The day became a blur of things happening to me. I remember a police officer, a woman with kind eyes, trying to ask me questions. I couldn't form the words. My mouth was full of cotton and ash. I remember my mom's sisters, my aunts arriving. They were a flurry of hushed whispers and practicalities, making phone calls, trying to shield me. But all I felt was this strange sense of distance. It was like I was at the bottom of a deep well, and all their voices were just echoes from the world above. My mom, she was a storm of grief. Her pain was so big, so loud, it filled every room. When she saw me, she just held me, but it was a desperate, drowning kind of hug. I felt like a life raft she was clinging to, but I was already full of holes and sinking fast. I couldn't comfort her. I couldn't comfort anyone. I couldn't even feel my own skin. My friends came by later. They stood awkwardly in the doorway of the guest room, their faces a mixture of pity and a guilt so thick you could taste it. They kept saying, "We're so sorry about my dad, about not helping me the night before." I just nodded. Their apology felt like it was for a different person from a different lifetime. The girl who went to a club the night before was gone. She died somewhere between the dance floor and my front porch. I was someone new, a ghost. In the days that followed, the numbness was my armor. It got me through the funeral arrangements, through people bringing casseroles to the door with sad eyes, through picking out a suit for my dad that he would never get to wear. I was an actress playing the part of the bereaved daughter. I nodded. I said, "Thank you." I existed. But at night alone, the armor would crack, and the what ifs would come. They were relentless. What if I hadn't gone out? What if I had stayed home and forced a conversation? What if I had seen how much pain he was in? And his last words to me, "I'll take a rain check." That phrase played on a loop in my head. A rain check he never intended to cash. It was his way of saying goodbye, and I hadn't heard it. The guilt was a physical thing. It felt like swallowing glass. Healing isn't what you think it is. It's not a straight line. It's messy. It's ugly. For a long time, I was angry. I was angry at my dad for leaving, for being a coward, like he said in his note, for putting that burden on me. I was angry at my mom for not seeing it, for leaving in the first place. I was angry at my friends for their carelessness. I was angry at myself for being a stupid kid who just wanted to escape. But anger is exhausting. And eventually, underneath all that anger was just this profound, bottomless sadness. The empty chair at the dinner table, reaching for the phone to call him about something funny I saw, and then remembering. Father's Days became days I just wanted to sleep through. Slowly, very slowly, you learn to carry it. The grief doesn't get smaller, you just grow bigger around it. You learn to live with the empty space. And you start to remember the good things. His laugh, the way he smelled of sawdust and coffee. The advice he gave me, you realize that their story doesn't end with their last day. It lives on in you. It's a strange and subtle thing. For the longest time, my memories of him were just a slideshow of his final week. The haunted eyes, the hollowed out expression, the rain check, that was it. That was the man my grief had reduced him to. But slowly, other memories started to seep through the cracks. I remember once I was trying to build a piece of flat pack furniture. I was getting so frustrated, the instructions made no sense, and I was about to just throw the wrench across the room. And I heard his voice clear as day in my head, not even as a memory, but as a present thought. Hey, now, don't force it. If it doesn't fit, you're doing it wrong. Step back and look again. He used to say that all the time when I'd get frustrated with a math problem or a project. And in that moment, I wasn't just remembering him. He was with me. I stepped back, I looked at the diagram again, and I saw my mistake. I started crying right there on the floor with a half-built bookshelf, not from sadness, but from, I don't know, from gratitude, from this overwhelming sense that he wasn't entirely gone. And I started to see him in myself. I'd catch a glimpse of my hands and realize they were his hands, the same long fingers. I'd make a dry, sarcastic joke in the middle of a serious moment and think, oh my God, that was a dad joke. His legacy wasn't just in the big life lessons. It was in the small inherited mannerisms, in the DNA of my personality. For a while, that scared me. Was I destined to carry his sadness too? But then I realized I also carried his resilience, his weird sense of humor, his ability to fix almost anything. I could choose which parts of his story I wanted to carry forward. The hardest part was learning to forgive, not just him, but myself. I had to forgive the teenage girl who just wanted to escape her own pain for one night. She wasn't a monster. She was a kid in an impossible situation, and I had to forgive my dad. That was harder. Forgiving him not for leaving, but for the way he left, for the note on the door, for turning his pain into my trauma. That forgiveness didn't come in a sudden wave of enlightenment. It came in tiny drops over years. It came when I started to understand that the depth of his pain must have been a black hole that swallowed everything, including his love for me. It wasn't that his love wasn't real. It was that his illness was bigger. Forgiving him meant accepting that he was a flawed, broken man who did a terrible thing out of unbearable suffering, not out of a lack of love. And Father's Day, it's still a complicated day. For years, it was a day I dreaded, a day to just get through. But now, it's different. A few years ago, I woke up on Father's Day and I went into the kitchen and I made myself breakfast, a big, elaborate breakfast, the kind I promised him. And I sat at my table alone and I ate it. And I talked to him. I told him about my life, about my job, about the funny thing that happened last week. I took back the day. It's not a day of celebration. It's a day of remembrance, of quiet reflection. It's our day. It's my rain check. That's why I'm telling you this. Because for the longest time, I thought this story was just my shame and my pain to carry alone. I thought it was the story of an ending. But I've learned it's also the story of what comes after. Our stories are more than that. There are maps. This story, it's a huge part of my map, but it's not the only landmark. There are so many other experiences, other lessons, other moments of shock, laughter, and survival that I want to share with you. If this story resonated with you, if you believe in the power of sharing the raw, unfiltered truth of the human experience, then I invite you to join me, subscribe to the channel, and become part of this journey. We'll explore the moments that define us, and maybe in sharing our stories, we can all feel a little less alone in this wild, unpredictable life. This is just one chapter. There are so many more to come.